Hi everybody, and welcome to another live question and answer with me, Martin Twycross. Once again, bringing you practical, down-to-earth teachings on mediumship without the fluff. So welcome to all those who are joining us in the room, and if you're joining us on the replay, a special welcome to you too. If you are in the room, do let me know if you can hear me okay. Do let me know that it's working well. Occasionally there are technical issues, so if the earlier I know of them, the better. So that would be helpful. Just to let you all know as well that I do have a sale on at the moment, a spring sale on my website. So there is 10% off site-wide, covering all my products, my study program, my videos, my courses. So if that's of interest to you, do check it out. It does cover all those categories you can see on the screen. So I currently have 10% off site-wide on all my products, if that's of interest. So welcome to Paul, Catherine, Carol, Kim, Debs, Cheryl. Good to see you all. Also, just to let you know as well that I will be launching my 2025 mentorship course. That's aimed at intermediate to advanced, and I'll be posting all the details of that at the end of April. So do keep an eye out for that if you're interested. It's 10 sessions, plus you also get some extras, which is a coaching and assessment session with me. You get the opportunity to do a demonstration in front of the public that I watch your work doing 2 links, and also you get a chance to submit a reading for me for me to assess, and also to do a reading for me. So there's quite a lot of parts of it as well that you get to work with. So if you're intermediate to advanced level and that sounds of interest, then do take a look at my website and do look out for it coming up at the end of April. So if you've got any questions and you're in the room, then do put them in the chat box. The way it works is I work through them one at a time. If you would like to get your question answered earlier, you can make a small donation using the super chat facility, and I'll come to your question as the next question. But I do have a question that I want to start with tonight, which is quite an interesting question. I've been asked this one several times recently. What makes good mediumship? What makes a good medium? People ask me, which mediums do you recommend? And rather than naming names, which I don't want to do, I'd rather talk about the qualities and the types of information I'm looking for good mediumship. So first and foremost, if for someone to be a good medium, then mediumship has to be specific. So we're talking about having a specific communicator coming through. So it's not that 3 or 4 people in the room can all place someone like that. It's got to be someone specific. We need to get down to a single recipient. I see some mediums work and several people take it and they say, you can all share it. And it's like, that doesn't fit for me. That's not specific enough. So we don't want sharing it out amongst people. That's not good neither. So to get it to be specific to one person, we do need it to be specific evidence. Now, I don't mind whether that evidence is hard facts, or I don't mind whether that evidence is other information that may not necessarily be considered by some to be amazing detail, like names or addresses. That sort of thing doesn't always work, I see, with many mediums. But if it's highly specific information, Dad, who passed with a heart attack, he had several heart attacks, the 3rd one took him. I like that. That's highly specific. I like the evidence particularly to be logical, to tie together, to build up, to form a body of evidence, to be meaningful, to build a story, to tell some aspect of their life. I see some mediums work and their evidence is just random pieces of information that have no association with each other. So the colour blue, a dog, heart attack, nice car. It's like, hang on, well, how does any of that fit? It doesn't make sense. The evidence should unfold and tell a logical story. It should unfold with some degree of meaning. That's what we would like with good mediumship. So the evidence has to be understood. It should be understood by the recipient. It cannot be made to fit. Some people, it's like, well, I can make this bit fit here and I can make that bit fit there. And yeah, that probably fits 2 or 3 in spirit. No, it should be clear. It should apply to one person. It should be clearly about them. There should be no symbology needed to try and figure out how it fits in. You should know how it fits as the recipient. It should be clear. And it should be clear to the audience listening as well. Now, for me, the evidence and the contact has to be meaningful. The evidence has to be meaningful, but also the message should be meaningful within the personality of the communicator. I love personality within evidence in good mediumship. If somebody works without personality, without bringing the personality of the communicator in, I always feel like we're shortchanging spirit. I really do. So what we bring in should bring them to life. It should create, we really want it to tell that story of who they are and how they lived their lives, their personality. And we also want to build that reunion. How did they get along with the person they've come for? What was the nature of their relationship? Is there healing needed within that relationship? Are there messages that need to come forward that are meaningful, that need to be brought forward? And that will often create profound emotion as well as healing when that takes place. So that's what we want. It needs to be that reunion. We need to allow spirit and the recipient, the sitter, to spend that time together. Really good mediumship should bring forward the presence and the essence of spirit. People in the room should feel the presence of spirit. The sitter should feel the presence of spirit. The medium may take on mannerisms of spirit. The medium may take on some of the words or phrases of spirit. That's profound. That really touches people. That's really fantastic mediumship when we see that happening. And for me, we want the intelligence of spirit. Spirit are intelligent people. I love it when somebody gives all this evidence, the person says no to them, and they're saying, oh, well, you just have to go and check it all out because it's right, and you should know it, but you don't. It's like, hang on a minute, spirit know. Spirit know what they know. And spirit, yes, occasionally they will bring information not known to demonstrate they really are there, especially for people who wonder, is this just mind reading? So that can be good evidence, but there shouldn't be much of it. If most of the information is not known, it does not make sense because spirit know the person. Spirit know the nature of their relationship. They wouldn't bring stuff that doesn't fit. So I like the intelligence of spirit, but one thing I do like as well is to demonstrate that spirit are that living mind. To demonstrate that they know what goes on in the family or in that person's life since they've passed. To demonstrate that they are aware of the big issues, that there's been a new child born into the family, that the person, the sitter, has just got married recently and they were there. That's profound stuff. It should be there. If you bring through my loved ones and there's something really important happening in family and it's not even recognized, again, I question, have you really truly got them? Are you really truly blended and connected with them? If they're missing really important things, it makes me question it. But most of all as well, the whole contact should be uplifting, not only for the recipient, but it should be uplifting for an audience, and it should be engaging for an audience. If it's mediumship demonstrated in front of an audience, the links obviously go to individual people. The other people in the room do not get a link. Say you're working on an evening, you're doing 7 links, and there's 30 people in the room. 7 people are going to get a contact. Maybe less than 7 if you give two messages to one person. But that means at least 23 people are not going to get a contact. If it's a theatre dem, it's going to be a lot more than that. So what's taking place has to be engaging, has to involve to some degree the remaining people in the room, the audience. The audience need to feel connected, engaged in some way. And a good medium can draw them in with that. And a good medium will use the evidence, the personalities of spirit, the stories of spirit to draw people in. So for me, that's what makes good mediumship. Now, not every link has all of that. I get that. I see that. I understand that. But if we're looking at a demonstration as a whole, that's what we'd be looking for, that those elements are coming forward within it. And that's what we should be aspiring to as mediums. We shouldn't be happy just given random bits of information. We shouldn't be happy where it fits across multiple people. We shouldn't be happy where it always has to be made to fit. Remember, mediumship should be specific. So hopefully that answers the question, what makes good mediumship? And I hope that's beneficial to those of you listening as well. Absolutely. Okay, so let's have a look for questions. Debs, have you ever experienced animal communication? Now, I guess you can argue there's 2 different types of animal communication. There's animal communication with living animals, whereby we are tuning in psychically, empathetically to that animal, to understand what is happening. People who've got pets, you know when your animal is stressed, you know when there's something going on, you can tune in, you can feel it. But can we have a conversation with the animal? Hi Benji, how are you today? Oh, I'm fine, thank you. No, it's not like that, obviously. Because mediumship is not like that neither. But we're sensing from the animal. Effectively, it's psychic sensing. Absolutely. So we can all do that to varying degrees. All of us who've developed some degree of mediumistic ability and some degree of psychic ability, yes, we can all do that to various degrees. And a lot of people who just are in tune with their animal will do it naturally. Absolutely. And then we have what we call the animal communication from the spirit world, where an animal from spirit can blend with us and we can bring information about that animal. We've got to understand the limitations of the mind of the animal as well, because an animal is not quite as proficient at communicating with a medium as a person is. Absolutely. Animals will quite often come with another person in a reading or in a contact. It's quite common that I will get an animal, then someone comes in with the animal. But occasionally I just get the animal. Occasionally I'm aware of a dog. I can describe the dog. I can describe the dog's personality. I can describe how this dog interacted with the owner. I can describe this dog. Perhaps it was unwell at the end. It had problems. It struggled to walk, or there was something going on with the arthritis in the hips. Same kinds of things with health we describe with people, we can describe with dogs, absolutely. And we can describe the nature of the relationship between the owner and the animal. And it doesn't have to have somebody else coming in. It doesn't. You know, some people, they love their pets more than they love people. Absolutely. And the person they most want to hear from in a reading, or the person they would most like to hear from in a demonstration, is not one of their loved ones. It's not one of their family members. It's their pet. Especially if it's quite a recent passing as well. If you've just lost a dog that was a part of your life for 14 years, and was your loyal companion day in, day out, you've got that bond there. You would love to hear from your dog. You would love that connection, that to be reunited with your dog. I get that. I see that. So yes, I have done that as well. It's as I was going to say, as I age, as I do more mediumship, I get that a lot more. Now, some people tell you animals can't communicate. And if you believe that, that becomes a limiting belief for you. But with my own experience, yes, animals can communicate. Yes, animals will communicate. And they don't always have to have somebody else coming in with them. Some mediums teach that you have to have somebody else there bringing the animal forward, which is not true. But because if we believe that to be the case, we will then go looking for somebody else as well. So again, a lot of it comes down to your belief system. But the fact is, animals are equally as easily able to communicate as people, if they wish to. And most commonly, you'll see it within the private reading. Some people say we shouldn't do animal communication on platform, and I understand why, because in a spiritualist church on platform, the purpose of the demonstration is to demonstrate the survival of the human survival, the survival of the soul. And we're not really meant to demonstrate animals. So on a platform, it would be helpful to have somebody else come in with the animal to prevent you falling foul of people and saying you're not demonstrating the philosophy of spiritualism. But in a sitting, absolutely, it happens. And we don't need to worry about it, because the sitting is about creating that reunion. And that reunion can equally well be a person with their animal. So great question. I like that question. Well done. Great. I can see a few more coming in. So if you've got your questions, do pop them in the chat box. Debs, do you prefer private sittings or public dems? Personally, I'd have to say public demonstrations. Not that I dislike sittings, but I really enjoy a public demonstration where there's a greater degree of power to work with. And I often find that in a sitting, you're limited to that person's loved ones in spirit. So someone comes for a sitting with you, they've got 3 close people in the spirit world, that's who you're going to get. And there may not be big characters in there. May not be amazing stories in there. And of course, but to that person, whatever you bring, if you reunite them, it's truly meaningful. But when we're working in front of an audience, sometimes it's good to get some really detailed, specific information that really demonstrates survival. And when you think about it, if you've got 20 people in the audience, each with 3 people in spirit close to them, and lots of other people as well, that's maybe 60 to pull from. And sometimes as mediums, we get the most amazing evidence. But that generally happens in a dem, you see. I remember giving one guy, I had a guy who on a motorbike who was like a Hell's Angel type guy. And then I saw his funeral and I saw motorbikes actually in the church. And I saw a motorbike actually towing his coffin. And I gave it, and I'm thinking, this is bound to be wrong. It's probably my own mind coming in. And the person said, no, that's exactly what happened. They got special permission for a motorbike to tow the coffin in down the aisle. And what you said was absolutely right. He lived for motorbikes. And you go, wow. Now, that can happen in a demonstration, but it's less likely in a sitting because of the reasons I've given. So when that kind of thing happens, and okay, it doesn't happen all the time, absolutely no. But again, it's, for me, I love the ability to try and seek out unusual information, unusual evidence like that. And again, it's not so easy to do this. I find a sitting is more about the personal reunion of loved ones. And to the person who's having the sitting, absolutely, it's a meaningful, wonderful thing. But when we're demonstrating in front of an audience, it's about demonstrating the intelligence of spirit. It's about doing all that I said at the beginning, getting those specifics, getting that meaningful communication, making it uplifting and engaging. And because of that, there's more scope to get in deeper, and there's a greater power within which to work. Hence, my preference, public dems. But not to say that I dislike sittings, because sittings are very, very important. Sittings is the bread and butter of mediumship. Sittings is what creates that reunion. We've got to be good at sittings to be good at dems. That's the key thing to bear in mind. It's like mediums do their apprenticeship on sittings. Absolutely. Thousands upon thousands of sittings. And then you see the quality come through in the demonstrations. It's important to recognize that. You can't just do one. I know some people who say, oh, I don't like one, I'll do the other. And it's like, no, do both. Do both. It will help you. Okay, so Paul. Been trying to contact guides through meditation for over a year now, and all I seem to do is fall asleep no matter how awake I am. Any advice? So the best way to contact guides is either a specific meditation that helps create some degree of contact with them, or with tools like inspirational writing, inspirational speaking, learning to develop inspiration to allow their influence to come close to us. If you're falling asleep, it tends to suggest to me either you're doing the meditation at the wrong time, at a time when you're sleepy. When we blend with spirit, we need to do it at a time when we're alert. If you're not doing sit in the power, I do recommend you do sit in the power, because sit in the power helps us to learn to blend with spirit. It's a very good practice to do. On my channel, I have a playlist for sit in the power. I have a sit in the power meditation, and I have a lot of short videos about sit in the power as to why we should do it. Now, when I teach people to help learn to blend with their guides, it's kind of an extension of sit in the power. So I should mention as well that as one of my courses, it's not actually shown there, but one of the, actually is the very top one. It is there on the top left, Understanding Guides and Helpers. So that course there is 4 sessions, and there's 3 meditations, and also a guided exercise, inspiration exercise as well, to get to know your guides. So I do recommend that. And we also need to understand a little bit about how likely we are able to communicate with guides. If you've not developed yourself psychically, or you've not done some degree of mediumistic development, we shouldn't really expect our guides to be able to communicate with us as clear as day. So we have to develop ourselves clearly. That's important. So, to develop that communication with guides takes time. I developed as a trance medium, but before trance comes inspiration. And to develop good transmediumship takes many years, 5+ years in my experience for most mediums. So it takes a lot of time sitting regularly, and that's sitting sort of on a weekly basis. That's sitting very regularly. It takes that time to do it. So I would say make sure you've got expectations that are aligned with reality. We don't want you to have unrealistic expectations. Try and set the communication to be at a time when you're wide awake. And if you can use some kind of focused meditation, that is better than just sitting there and expecting them to come to you. Remember, we always have to go to meet them as well as them coming to meet us. It's not, we just don't sit there and expect them to appear. It's not going to happen. Yes, it happens in transmediumship, but remember that takes many, many years to develop sitting regularly. But for the rest of it, we're kind of moving to them, they're moving to us. We find that middle ground. And the best way to develop it is through some form of inspirational speaking, inspirational writing, which we then learn to deepen. So hopefully that's helpful for you. So welcome, Marianne. Kim, given your science background, do you have any thoughts on whether mediumship can be understood in the context of quantum physics, dimensions connecting to electromagnetic fields? Now, I'm sure it can. But, you know, even though I studied physics at university and have a degree in physics, it's never something I really tried to get into too deeply, if I'm honest. And anything that complicates things is not a good thing for me. So I just like to keep mediumship as simple as possible. And I just like to try and explain it as simply as possible. If I was starting to talk about quantum dynamics, it then gets a little bit more complicated. And yes, that kind of thing can be interesting to explain away a lot of the philosophical depth with spirit communication and mediumship. I understand that. But for most people start glazing over when you try and explain the principles of quantum mechanics. And when we start talking about interdimensional worlds and things, it becomes a bit tricky. So personally, I don't actually think we need it to understand mediumship. And in all the teaching I do of mediumship, I don't go there. I don't bring it in. I don't think it's needed. But for those who love it and want to bring it in, go for it. We need people who are able to work across all areas. It's just not an area that I get into, if you see what I'm saying. So I'm a huge fan of Harry Edwards. Now, one of the courses I created, which again, I don't think it's on this list. No, it's not. Great Mediums of the Past. As a course I created where I talk about the 6 mediums who most inspire, the 5 mediums who most inspire me. There's a 6th class where I talk about what we can learn from all of them. And the 5 mediums who most inspire me are Gordon Higginson, Estelle Roberts, Helen Hughes, Morris Barbanel, and Harry Edwards. And with healing, Harry Edwards, he looked at all the practices of healing and he tested them and he looked at them all and he tried to throw away as much as possible that didn't fit. You know, people's had ideas of combing the aura and flicking off all the gunk and things like that. And he said it's not relevant. It's just unnecessary. People had ideas that if you're doing absent healing, you've got to get the person at the other end to sit and be in a receptive state to get it. And he found out through his experimentation it was unnecessary. So he threw away a lot of ideas relating to healing to get down just to the pure basics, the pure facts, the pure core of healing. And that's the same approach I like to bring to mediumship as well. I don't like to overcomplicate it. I don't talk about chakras in any great deal of detail. I don't get excited about trying to get into different layers of the aura and how many layers there are and all their different qualities. Because again, I find it doesn't help. Simply, mediumship is learning to become receptive to thoughts coming from the spirit world. And really, that's as simple as it is. I don't need to tell you to activate chakras. I don't need to tell you to do anything ultra complex. You've just got to learn what works for you to create the blend. And then you've got to learn to become receptive and you've got to learn to be in that state that makes mediumship flow. So the more we can keep it simple, the better. So it's a good question, but for me, I don't tend to bring in those quantum physics, those aspects. And maybe in the future, I might look at it. Who knows? So if you do have questions, remember to pop them in the chat box. Otherwise, it's going to be a very short session this evening. Stephanie, how can you get started on your own? And is it totally safe? I've had to working through a lot of religious-based fear and programming. Yeah, I understand that. For many people, there's a lot of issues we have to get over, a lot of hurdles we have to get over with this work. Now, is it safe? Absolutely. Do you need protection? Now, some people will now start screaming at this video saying, absolutely you do. You need protection. Now, I don't teach protection at all. I believe we are naturally protected. Provided we come at this from the right perspective, the right reasons, we are naturally protected. Protection takes up a lot of our time. A lot of people doing the opening protection, the closing protection, constantly trying to check that nothing's happening in with their energy. And it's like, it's a distraction. I've never protected myself. I don't do opening rituals, closing rituals. So there is a video on my site, Do You Need Protection? There's a video on my site about rituals. And there's a video on my site about, do you need to do grounding? Yes, you need to be grounded, but you don't need to do elaborate rituals for it. You've just got to go and do something mundane. Go and do the washing up. Go and put the bins out. Go and do something mundane. I guarantee you'll be grounded. So there's nothing to fear. That's the important thing to recognize. There is absolutely nothing to fear with mediumship. Now, can you develop mediumship on your own? Again, I've got a video on my channel about that. And the simple answer is, you can develop some aspects, but not all of it. Not all of it. And to do mediumship, you need to have somebody to work for, because mediumship is about somebody's loved ones coming through to connect to somebody. You have to have a sitter. You have to have somebody to work with. Otherwise, why would the loved ones come forward to you? It doesn't make sense. So there is another video on my channel. I forget what it's called, something like 10 tips for developing mediumship. And the first one is you have to have somebody to work with for their loved one to come through you. If you just try and open to spirit yourself, why would they come? Where's their loved one? Why would they make that connection for that reunion if their loved one's not there? They're not going to do it. So you have to have someone in front of you. That's the thing. And there are things you can do by yourself, absolutely, like sitting in the power, like developing that relationship with the spirit world. Yes, you can do that. You can do some types of inspirational work by yourself, absolutely. But ultimately, if you talk about evidential mediumship, then it has to be done with somebody in front of you. And it's best done under the guidance of a teacher. It's best done in circles, classes, groups whereby, and the other thing to think about as well is, left to your own devices, you may not know what you're doing, but under the eye of an experienced teacher, you can be given exercises, helped to speed up the progression of development. So it's important that we develop in that type of environment. Yes, do I know people who develop by themselves? Yes. I often see a huge amount of issues, though, when they develop by themselves. So it's important to recognize that there are a lot of limitations with that. Generally, if you've developed by yourself, I shouldn't tell you this, but I will. If you've developed by yourself with no teaching from anybody else, in my experience, you would not be a candidate that I would accept on the mentorship program. Because in my experience, the people who develop by themselves, there's too many issues to try and sort out in the course, I'm afraid. That's what I find. So the more experience you have been taught by various teachers, the better it is for you. And I spent, from the moment I started developing, I went to as many different teachers as possible to try and experience as much different teaching as I could. And I recommend that. I recommend that you get exposed to as much as you can. So hopefully that helps. Yes, and Deb's mediumship without the fluff. Absolutely. That's the goal of the channel. Practical, down-to-earth teachings without the fluff. So if you are enjoying this, you can hit the like button. If you watch it on the replay, you can leave me a comment. But remember as well that there is my sale on my website at the moment. 10% off site-wide off all my products, courses, study programs, videos, audios. Do check that out if you're interested. Okay, next question. Debs, do you believe we are all met by our loved ones or angels when we pass over, i.e. we're not alone? Absolutely, I do. Now, most people have somebody in the spirit world who knows them, love some loved ones in the spirit world. And even if you don't, you have guides and helpers. And your guides and helpers have that relationship with you. And they will, even if you don't know who they are, somebody from spirit will be there to meet each person. No one is left stranded. No one is left in no man's land. Nobody is left to be lost in the wilderness. Absolutely not. We're all met. You've only got to think of your loved ones in spirit and they will come forward to meet you. Absolutely. So yes, I believe we're all met. Absolutely. Cindy, I've taken a 6-month break from readings. I do platform readings in private. I'm so nervous that I've lost it and won't be able to reconnect again. It seems I've lost my confidence. Yeah, that sounds like a classic crisis of confidence. So with confidence, the best thing to do is just to do it, is feel the fear and do it anyway. Now, when we have a break, do we lose it? No. What happens is that our own mind pushes us further away in some cases. Can I still do it? Will it still work? Well, obviously, COVID came along. And for many, many people, they didn't work. Now, some people weren't able to do online readings, online demonstrations. Some people are not good online. And so for those who used to working in physical venues, whether that's sit-ins or whether that's demonstrations, services in churches, for many people, there was an extended period of time, 9 months or even a year, where they didn't work. And we had a lot of these conversations going on. Will it work when we start up again? Will it work when I first go in a church after not having done a service for the best part of a year? And the answer is yes, it does. But we get worried. We get worried and that makes it harder. We start panicking and worrying and that moves us further away from spirit. That creates those extra hurdles, those extra obstacles. So we've got to learn to let that down. We've got to learn just to let that go. Now, I do have a course. One of my courses is the Confident Medium, which is 4 sessions, 40-hour sessions of theory on confidence, on how we can help develop our confidence, on how we should, on how confidence applies to different aspects of mediumship. Some people just have a huge crisis of confidence for standing up in public. Some people have confidence issues when somebody says no to them. Some people have confidence issues when it starts to, they perceive it to not work, and then it all crashes. They get into a mindset where, oh my God, this is not working. Oh my God, this is all going wrong. And then it's like a runaway roller coaster and everything starts to collapse. And what happens is spirit are there as a constant. We just, through our thinking, we're moving ourselves further away from them. It's all us. Absolutely. It's all us. So, yes, it's there. If you develop something, you don't lose it. I always say it's like riding a bike. Once you've learned to ride a bike, you can ride a bike in the future. You don't forget how to ride a bike. Now, does your mediumship change? Absolutely, it does. It's constantly changing over time. So it may not be exactly the same as where you left it, but it will work. It will work. What we've unfolded is not taken away. What we've developed cannot be removed. It's there. It's there within us. If we develop that sensitivity, if we've developed that mediumship is there to be worked with. The only thing that moves us further away from it is our mental state, our emotional state. If we're extremely anxious, or if we're going through a difficult time in our life where we're very stressed and we're in a difficult emotional state, it moves us further away. It's important to recognize that. But otherwise, do it. Just try it, do it. Don't have too high an expectation and go with the flow. That's what I'd say. Okay. JD, in the last several readings that I've had with different mediums, my husband who died many years ago and my boyfriend who died 2 years ago seem to come in together. Why? Quite simply, I don't know the answer to that. What I would say is that they're both connected to you. What I would say is that they may have come independently, but they're in the same reading. It doesn't mean, if you like, they shared a taxi along from the spirit world. But both of them care about you. Both of them want to be reconnected with you. Both of them you have that association, that connection with. So it makes sense that they would want to come forward for you. If I have a reading, a long enough sitting with somebody, a medium, they may bring through 4 or 5 of my loved ones, some of whom can't stand each other. But the common denominator is me. They'll come through for me. It's not that they, if you like, they have to be in the same room with each other. It's kind of a little bit hard to explain this. But as a medium, when we're linking with people, it's not as if they're in a physical place in the spirit world. We're linking with their mind. So it's not that they've had to come, if you like, and stand next to the medium and be with the medium. All they've got to do is blend with the medium, blend with the mind of the medium, blend with the energy of the medium. So if you like, they're not necessarily together, those two people. But they're just coming because you're there. That's the important thing to recognize. So as I say, in readings, I've had different members of the family who've not got along. They've come through in the reading, but it doesn't mean they all like get on the bus and come down for the reading together where they might be having a good old row. It's not going to happen. No. So I hope that makes sense to you. Palestine, I have a weird question. I've been getting really good evidence lately with little practice even. And how is it possible that it feels like it's made up in my mind but then blows the sitter away? So it's very common that it feels like we're making things up. It's incredibly common because mediumship functions through the imagination. Mediumship functions through the right brain, whose language is imagery, emotions. It's the imagination works from there. So the same mechanism when we're making things up, that creative side of us, that is what's used in mediumship. But what we learn to do is we learn to quieten down our own mind, our own thoughts, our own ideas, so that what appears in our minds, then we give, because it comes from the spirit world. But quite often I'll get stuff in my mind and go, wow, I can't give that. That's so far out. That's a bit much. And it's like, no, let me try. Let me see. Go with it. Go with it. We have to learn to trust and go with it. And you go, it's right. And you go, wow. That example I gave earlier on where I had this Hell's Angel guy who passed and this motorbike in the church. My own brain's saying, don't be stupid. Motorbikes aren't allowed in churches. Don't be stupid. Motorbikes do not tow coffins. So our own mind's screaming no, but we just got to give it. See if it's right. And if it's right, hey. Another time I gave a guy who actually got buried on his motorbike in like a crane lowering his great big coffin into the ground. And he's buried on his motorbike. It's like, wow. Again, you couldn't make it up. It's like your own imagination can't even create some of this stuff. And it's right. So we got to recognize that our imagination is the tool Spirit will use. The more open we are to receiving things, the easier it is to get things. The more open we are, the more we have knowledge of, the better. If our mind is quite closed to certain ideas, concepts, information, it becomes harder. So a good imagination and being open to receiving whatever, and the more experience you have of life, and the more open you are to all different avenues of life, the easier it will be for Spirit to work with you and trigger that imagination. How fabulous is that? It is good, isn't it? Right, let's see where we are. Where did I get to? You're having trouble finding teachers in Texas. I guess I should stick to online teachers. Yeah, so if you can't find a teacher locally, then the internet is your friend. Working online is your friend. There are so many opportunities now online to work with great teachers. Absolutely. So I would recommend some kind of online circle. And I know people who've developed exclusively online as mediums, who never had anything locally and only went into online groups, online circles, and have developed to a really high standard. So for me, if you're developing your psychic abilities, it's easier when the person's in the room with you to do psychic exercises. But for mediumship, online makes no difference. It's as equally easy to connect to their loved ones, whether you're in the room with them or not. So online is great, absolutely. So that's your answer. You have your answer. Rhonda, I know this sounds strange, but any way to practice without a sitter? Not easily with mediumship, no. Now, some people say, well, I can look at a picture and get some information, and then I can get some information about somebody and email it to them and then get their responses later. Or some people post an image up and it's my least favorite way of working. Someone posts an image to a Facebook group or something similar, and a whole bunch of people pile in writing things, and invariably you'll not get the feedback you need. And what happens is people see what other people have written and they try to go on the same theme. Everything that's written there colors your mind. And in my experience, you don't get decent quality feedback in that way of working. And it's the hardest way of working, to work without any feedback. It's possible. Don't get me wrong. You can do it. But it's hard, and it's very easy to go off on a tangent. It's very easy to start letting our own mind come in, our own imagination come in, for us to start taking information and taking it in a direction it's not intended. If you have a sitter in front of you who can give you yeses, nos, don't knows, when they start saying, no, I don't understand that, I'm sorry, I can't take that, then you've got to go back and work with it. If you've got no person in front of you, you're just going to start going into an area where you're never going to get the right results, because it goes wrong and you don't know where you've gone wrong. So in the early stages, always work with somebody in front of you, either in a group, in a circle, that way. But as you're more experienced, then yes, you can experiment working without a sitter, but not if you're a beginner. It will really cause a lot of problems for you otherwise. And generally, to my own students, I don't recommend they do it. There's no need for it. It's best to develop with having somebody in front of you to give it to. That's what I would say. What's going to happen otherwise is you're not going to work particularly well. It's going to dent your confidence. You're going to go, oh, mediumship's not really working very well. But the exercise you're doing is not an easy exercise to do with no feedback. Like even with experienced people, I get some people to work with no feedback, with no answers, and just have to write it all out, and then we'll see if it's right. And we often see it goes wrong, even with highly experienced mediums. So it's not a beginner's exercise. It's important to recognize that. It really is. And I know where in the past, where organizations have offered sittings, but in person, by video, or audio sittings, online or on the phone, or written sittings. The ones that went wrong the most frequently were the ones that were written either like an email, where the person does not give feedback. They're the ones that go wrong, even for highly experienced, highly skilled mediums. So it's not something I recommend people do unless they want to trial it as just as an exercise. But it's not something you should be doing regularly. Fasting. Which course do we start with for a budding medium? I don't know if you mean which of my courses would I recommend. So if we're talking about my courses, I generally, the order I've developed these courses and recommend people follow them is start with meditation and sitting for spirit, then move on to the fundamentals of mediumship, then move on to getting better evidence, and then you can move on to better private readings and better platform mediumship. That's kind of the progression. If you like, the fundamentals and the meditation for sitting for spirit, that is the basics. Getting better evidence is the intermediate, and doing the private readings and the platform, that's the intermediate to advanced. The other courses I offer, Confident Medium, is specifically for those who've got confidence issues. Spiritual self-development, I highly recommend to everybody. It's important that you develop your own spirit, your own soul, because that will pay dividends in the long run with your mediumship. Self-development is key in developing mediumship. People often start by doing a bit of theory, then getting practice, but ultimately self-development is what's going to take you furthest. And for those who want to understand their guides and helpers, yeah, you've got that course as well. So that's my own courses. If it's courses with somebody else, you want something that's going to be like a beginner's course, a foundation course, that's where you need to start ideally. Tilly, if we had an ability like hearing spirit and then it stopped, will it come back? Good question. Good question. So again, when we're developing our mediumship, remember, mediumship is forever changing. So what you often find is that something comes up very strongly and then falls back again. Something else comes up strongly, then falls back again. So my own experience, imagery started very strongly, and then imagery went back, and then feeling started very strongly, then feeling settled down a bit, and then knowing started to develop more as well. And then some words, but not a great deal of words. Hearing spirit is particularly challenging. Very few mediums are what I call pure clairaudience, who just hear what spirits say. Some mediums of the past who could do that, like Gordon Higginson, Helen Hughes, Estelle Roberts, they would literally hear spirit and just repeat what spirits say. And it's devastatingly accurate. They can give names, addresses, and it's devastatingly accurate. For us mere mortals, that doesn't happen very often. You've got to be the lucky one, the 1 in 1,000, the 1 in 10,000 to have that ability. Most mediums get an occasional word, and that's it. So if we have something that does develop, remember, we don't lose it entirely. But sometimes spirit give us a glimpse of what's possible. Spirit, if you like, it's like that ability is temporarily turbocharged, and then we've got to work to get it. It's like, here's a glimpse of what is possible within you. Now work for it. And a lot of people don't want to work for it. A lot of people don't want to put the effort in to get that all back again. So in my own experience, sometimes when it's been amazing, it's kind of given me a clue that that's possible, but that's where we have to work for to make sure that it happens over time. I hope that makes sense. Philippa, when will I know I'm prepared to do mediumship professionally? For more than I practice, I learn more, I feel the responsibility. It's such a huge decision. Absolutely. So what we tend to find is when people start becoming professional mediums, just charging for it, some people feel the responsibility, are very nervous about it, and don't know if they're ever ready. And I'd say to those people, provided that when you're working for spirit, when you're doing the work, when you're doing sittings, you're getting the majority of your links placed, at least 70% of all your links placed, I would say go for it. Start doing it. You don't have to charge as much as other mediums. You can charge a bit less. You can do exchange readings. You can do a reading in exchange for some feedback, etc. But yes, start working the process of becoming professional. But a lot of people, the other side of the coin, is those who think they're great, who think I'm fabulous, and who try and jump into it too soon. And that causes problems. That causes a lot of problems for a lot of people. So again, if you've got teachers, ask them what they think. Are you ready? If they say you are, go for it. If they say no, don't, then listen to what they're saying. So for a lot of people I know, some people, it was a challenge to get them started, and others wanted to run before they could walk, and it's a case of trying to rein them back in and slow them down. You know, the key bit is consistency. If when you're working, doing a sitting, or working, making contacts with people, if the vast majority are understood and the evidence is good, then yes, we progress forward. If a lot of it's not been taken, if a lot of it's not been understood, then there's a lot of work to do before you should ever be thinking of becoming professional. A good professional medium should not be letting many contacts go. I think in the course of a year, I can count on one hand the number of contacts I will let go because I can't place them. And if I was doing readings, if I was doing 10 readings, I'd expect maybe 1 reading out of 10 to be a challenge, but the rest should all work to some degree. Some will be flyers, some will be excellent, some will be pretty good, some will be good, some will be fair, but maybe 1 might be difficult and 1 might be a challenge. That's kind of where we want to go. That should be the goal. But if every reading you're doing is difficult and challenging, it's not good. But some people don't actually notice what's even happening in their own mediumship. They don't even notice if it's working or not. They just trust this. Oh, I just give what I get. I don't have to worry if the person can take it. I just give what I get. I'm a channel for spirit. No, you've got to find out, is it understood? You've got to have some understanding of your degree of accuracy. You've got to have some understanding of whether your readings are working well or not. And if you don't, you're limiting yourself. You're doing yourself a disservice. And you are potentially not very good at all. And you're deluding yourself ultimately. It's hard. As a tutor, it's very hard when somebody is very confident and thinks they're great and working with spirit, and you watch it and you realize that actually they're not doing it right at all. And there's a huge amount of problems in the mix, and you point them out, and those people get very deflated and very defensive and very upset. And if they're not working well within their mediumship, they don't appreciate that you telling them it. But you can't tell them they're wonderful if they're not. You can't do that. So yes, we do our best to let it come forward gently, but we need to understand and be honest with ourselves as to how our mediumship is working. That's the key. Carol, could my mediumship work when I'm in a sleep state? Now, it won't be mediumship that's working in the sleep state, no. So when we talk about evidential mediumship, we're talking about bringing through evidence to somebody here that is understood. Now, when can you be aware of spirit in your sleep? Yes, sometimes we have dreams that can be a visitation dream where someone comes forward that we know from the spirit world, and it feels like we're with them, and it's profound. It can be emotional, and we wake up afterwards and we remember every moment of it. I believe that's real, that we have, if you like, been in the presence of spirit. But that's not mediumship. That's what's taken place in the dream state, in the sleep state. And it is an experience. We call it like a visitation dream. But it's not mediumship. Mediumship is where we give information and it's understood and recognized by somebody. So by definition, we don't do mediumship when we're asleep, because we have to be awake to give the information and get the response and check it. So that's how I'd explain that. I hope that makes sense to you. Victoria, I just returned from my first visit to Arthur Findlay. I'm looking for ways to continue studying my mediumship skills. Is there a course you offer that is not at a beginner's level? So I offer a lot of pre-recorded courses on my website. They're mainly theoretical courses. They're not practical courses. Some of them do have some exercises that you do in your own time. But if you like, they're self-study courses. And as I say at the moment, my website, there's 10% off everything on my website. I do offer a mentorship program, but that's aimed at intermediate to advanced, and it's through application. I will be launching the 2025 program end of this month, if anybody's interested. And I will be offering some other courses as well over the coming year. But again, most of what I offer isn't beginner's level. I tend not to teach beginners, if I'm honest. My preference, I get the most benefit from teaching people more at the intermediate to advanced level. But there are a huge number of tutors out there, absolutely, that offer courses, classes. So, there's a lot on offer, absolutely. But yeah, if you're interested in what I offer, you can sign up to my mailing list on my website, martintwycross.com, and then that way you'll get notified of everything I do. You also get notified of all my live question and answers at least 24 hours in advance. I know some people say, I didn't know they were on. So if you want to know that they're on, then basically, yes. If you want to know they're on, sign up to the my newsletter list and you'll be getting notification. If anybody is interested in the mentorship, I will be posting details. Do check them out. And then you can just send me a message on my website and I will send you through an application form. Hopefully that all makes sense. Kim, what is the best way to stay connected with our loved ones in spirit? Best way to stay connected with them is to think of them, talk to them, send them your thoughts, make them a part of your life. And now, can we connect with our own in the spirit world like we can with other people's? I have a video on that on my channel. Can a medium connect to their own loved ones in spirit? And the answer is simply not the same. We can become aware of them. We can feel them around us, absolutely. But having that communication is difficult, partly because we know too much about them, and partly because there's a subconscious need within us that can override the mediumship ability, so that the desire to create that communication overrides what's really taken place. If you like, your mind starts developing it. So I always feel as well like it's a gift to be used to help other people. It's not a gift to be used to help ourselves. If I could connect with my own loved ones the way I could connect with everybody else's loved ones, I'd probably spend most of my time connecting to my own, if I'm brutally honest. So it's like a valve. So basically, working for other people is healthy. Trying to link with my own is not such a good idea. So, because then I'd probably be no earthly use to anybody. Might become very selfish. So it's a gift to be given to others. Absolutely. Mediumship is a gift to be used for others. So it's quite hard to get contact with your own loved ones to the same degree. So don't expect that. Do check out the video on my channel on that. But basically, for you to stay connected to your own, best thing to do is to think of them regularly, to talk about them, to And often what happens is people go to a spiritualist church and someone will come through and they'll say, that's amazing. I was only talking about them last week, or only talking about them a couple of days ago. And spirit here. And if there is an opportunity to connect through a medium, they will. They will. If they're available, if that medium's a good fit for them. So it's important to recognize that. But absolutely, just talk to them in your mind. Doesn't matter if you get a response in the moment. Sometimes we'll get a response in other ways. Sometimes we'll notice things. We'll get signs. Okay, next question. Melinda, do you ascribe to the thought that our personal frequency must always overall be high in order for us to be able to blend with spirit? If so, how do I do that? And again, I bring you back to what I was saying earlier on about not trying to complicate mediumship too much. So spirit are at a higher frequency of vibration than we are. So what we have to do is to make that connection with spirit. We have to shift our awareness, move our own frequency to connect, if you like, in that moment. But we don't have to be at that level all the time. How can we be? You know, I'm talking to you now. I'm not in the same state of mind I'd be if I was connected to spirit. I'm in a more logical, analytical, thinking way of working. Whereas when I'm working with spirit, I move away from the logical side. I move to the creative mind. I move into an altered state of awareness. I'm less bothered about the cold analytical facts. So it's a different state of mind. But basically, if someone tells you, oh, to be a medium, you've got to have a high frequency, you need to spend hours of your time doing rituals to raise your vibration. No, not at all. Not at all. That sounds crazy to me. It's distracting from what mediumship is. Mediumship is that connection in the moment that we create through learning the mechanics of moving our mind to the spirit world. It's as simple as that. You know, do you have to be a beautiful person to do mediumship? Do you have to be the most evolved person spiritually to do mediumship? No. Spirit wants to work with people of all levels, to be able to communicate with people of all levels. Some people who are mediums may not always be very spiritual at all. The spirit will still work with them in the hope that they will spiritually evolve themselves. That's spiritual self-development, which, as I say, I've got a course for that one, because for me that is so critical. It really is. It's so critical. Like, I do believe that the more spiritual we become as human beings, the more compassionate, empathetic, the more generous, kind we become as individuals, the better mediums we'll become. I believe that. But I don't necessarily talk about raising my vibration to do that. It's about becoming more connected with the soul that I am, allowing the ego to diminish and move out the way, allowing the lower self, if you like, not to dominate. So we are routinely connecting in with the higher self, the soul, that part of us that contains all those wonderful spiritual qualities, allowing those spiritual qualities from within to become manifest within our lives. You know, for me, if someone does mediumship for 30, 40 years in their life, but they don't become a better person for it, they've really missed the point. You know, everything should be part of a journey for us to become better people, better human beings, more spiritual. I know many people who think that by them doing mediumship makes them incredibly spiritual, and it doesn't. It doesn't. It's just a gift. It's an ability. It's a skill. It's not. It's a skill. It's an ability that a lot of people can develop. Absolutely, which is not always connected to your state of spiritual development. So I probably haven't really answered that the way you want me to, but I've tried to answer it as honestly as I can. And if we've done things in the past that we're not proud of, it doesn't matter. Spirit will still work with us. Spirit will forgive us. Spirit will see those qualities within us. I hope that makes sense. So don't think that you have to be forever meditating. You have to be forever dousing yourself in the fumes of incense. You have to be forever bonging and trying to raise your vibration, meditating for hours on end, because you become no earthly use to anybody. We have to live in this world. We have to be the example to other people. We have to live amongst everybody and be as spiritual as we can. That's what we're seeking to do. And being spiritual means helping others. Service to others is the core, is the coin of service. Service is the coin of becoming spiritual. Absolutely. Hope that makes sense. Palestine, do you believe even natural mediums should find a teacher? Absolutely. I know so many who tell me they don't need teachers, but they could benefit, right? Absolutely. It's usually those people who tell me they're a natural medium and that they don't need a teacher. They're self-taught by spirit. And I watch them work. And either A, they're not a medium, or B, they're not doing it well, or C, they're creating absolute chaos and harm with people because they're saying things they shouldn't, that a teacher would say, whoa, you can't say that. Mediums should cause healing, never harm. And I see people who are self-taught just say crazy things and predict death and all sorts of things and cause pain and suffering for people. And it's just because they've not been taught the responsibility of mediumship. They've not been picked up upon what they're doing. So I see huge numbers of issues with those who are self-taught. Now, I'm not saying at the moment, if you're listening to this, if you're self-taught, you have all those issues. I'm just saying in my experience, the majority of people who've come to me who have had no teaching from any teacher generally exhibit huge amounts of issues like that we don't see if people had been taught by a teacher. So everybody will benefit from having some degree of formal teaching. And that's one of the reasons why I actually started by developing my videos to give people some theoretical foundation. And that became the basis of my study program as well. And also developing the courses as well, which they're all theoretical based. So wherever you are in the world, you can get some solid foundations in the theory of mediumship. You get to understand some of the core aspects of it so that you won't do anything crazy and you won't cause pain and suffering. That's the goal. That's the aim. That's what we want. Cool. Jay, have you listened to the telepathy tapes? I haven't, so I don't know what that is. So without listening to it or having seen it, I don't really know what it is, nor can I comment, so I won't. Sorry. Palestine, laugh out loud, mere mortals, you're funny. I try. Rhonda, maybe I need more development. In practice with my guides or loved ones, I only hear, but when I ask for a sign to make sure I do get it within a day or two, but I cannot see or feel anything. So yeah, it sounds like you may need a bit more development, absolutely. So the way guides work with mediumship is that they oversee the process. When I'm doing mediumship, I'm not communicating through my guide. Guide is not the middleman. The guide basically, if it starts going wrong, I send my thoughts to the guides to try and help fix it, to try and help bring it back on track. But if you like, for me, the guides during mediumship, they're there to oversee the process. They're there to brief the communicators on how my mind works. They're there to help smooth things and make it work easier. But if I try to ask my guide for all the evidence, it's never going to happen. It's like a game of Chinese whispers, isn't it? We link with the mind of the communicator from the spirit world. We link with that individual's mind. Hopefully that makes sense. Is there a good way to build the other clairs? Through development, basically, is the way to do it. You know, I see a lot of people offering you, 10 easy ways to develop clairaudience. And my own mind goes, really? Really? You know, how many mediums do I know who've got highly developed clairaudience? Not many. Probably count them on one hand. So is it something that is incredibly easy to develop? No. The language of mediumship functions through the subconscious, and the language of the subconscious mind is imagery, emotions, symbols, archetypes. So think about it. The language of the logical mind is words. So it's very hard for spirit to function, to give us words through the nature of how it operates, unless you are that one of those amazing people who has it. But again, I'll say, us mere mortals, most of us won't have that. So I can tell you different ways to develop clairaudience. You know, focus on it. Focus on sounds. Try to imagine the words appearing in your mind in your own voice or someone else's voice, etc. All these different ways. But whether you'll develop or not will depend upon where you are in your own journey of development. And usually, clairaudience would be the last to develop for most mediums. if they develop it to any degree at all. I wouldn't say I have very strong clairaudience, and I've been doing mediumship now for 24 years. So yeah. So yes, again, there are some ways to help develop, but the key thing is you've got to be at the right stage of the progression of the unfoldment of your mediumship for it to work. I can't just make anybody do clairsentience. I can't make anybody just see amazing images. They have to unfold it, and it has to come out in the right way. Now, one of my courses, I do talk about this in a great deal of detail, is the Getting Better Evidence course. And that is my most popular course. I go into how the mediumship functions, how we receive information through the different clairs, how we can develop those clairs, and how we can develop different mechanisms for getting information. Like names, for example. Some mediums will give a name, but how do you know they're actually hearing the name? They're not. They may be seeing it written on like a name badge. They may imagine an envelope with a person's name on it. They may imagine the person saying, "My name is," and the vibration of the name. It sounds like Mary or May. It's got an M and a Y in it. It's not, they're not hearing it. It's got an energy to it. So there are numerous different ways in which we can, or they may get a glimpse of somebody who's well known or somebody they know who has that same name. So if it's the name, if it's the name of Joe, you might get an image of Joe Biden. Or you see what I'm saying? Or if you've got someone in your family with that name, you might get a quick flash of them to get you the name. So there's numerous different ways of getting each type of evidence. And what we need to do is to try and work with as many different ways as possible to see what works for us. But just because someone's capable of giving a name doesn't mean they heard it. Quite often they may have seen it. Sometimes I see a name written out, and that is clairvoyance. Absolutely, it's clairvoyance. Or the name is just there in my mind strongly. Mary. I didn't hear it. It's just there. It's clair-knowing. I talk about that in a huge amount in the Getting Better Evidence course. If that sounds of interest to you, do check that one out. Victoria, I love this. Spirit gives you a turbocharge, but then we have to work for it. This has been my experience for sure, yeah. We sometimes call those spiritual sweeties. It's like Spirit give you a spiritual sweetie to keep your interest. And they give you a spiritual sweetie to show what you're capable of. And then it's taken away again. It's like all the stars come into alignment for a little while just to show you what you're capable of and what could happen. But then it's like, if you want it, now you've got to work for it. So absolutely, we get that a lot. I've had that a lot in my own development. I know many people who have as well. So yes, I do recommend that we take note of it when it happens, but then be willing to put the effort in. Some people I know, it goes away again and they get disillusioned. It's like, oh, maybe I'm not meant to be doing it. No, you are, but take note. That's the potential that's present. Now work, do the hard work and unfold it. Tilly, when I get a spirit with dementia, Alzheimer's, I get confused and can't push it away and have to stop the reading. That's interesting. I've not come across that one before. So, so the confusion that spirit bring is temporary, and it's evidence. It's not how their mind is now. It's important to recognize that. So, if I feel confusion, I will often feel into that as to how I get why it's there. Is it caused by a sudden event like a stroke or a brain hemorrhage or something like that that's caused a brain injury? Or is it something that develops slowly like an Alzheimer's or dementia? And, I'll work with it. How did it unfold? How did it affect their lives, etc.? But then we let it go. It's not ours, it's theirs. So we just ask them to take it away. If it didn't get taken away, I'd ask my guides, can they do anything to help change this? Also, we can, if you like, try and shift our energy, or even just imagine stepping to the side, stepping out. Visualize, that's there. I'm stepping to the side, stepping out of it. If it keeps happening, then there's something else going on. And maybe you need to look into what that means to you. Now, if we have a close loved one of our own who passes with a condition like that, and we have a lot of trauma attached to it, it can trigger things within us that make life hard for us. So as a medium, I talked about a lot about self-development. Part of self-development as well is sorting out our own stuff. so that we're not triggered by any evidence. Nothing can trigger issues within us because we've looked at ourselves, we've addressed those issues as best we can. So I'm a trained therapist, and when we started to become therapists, we all had to have therapy for our own issues, so that we are a clear therapist, that whenever anyone presents with something, it doesn't trigger us. It doesn't bring up stuff from us that we can't work with them. And it's the same with mediums. We need to deal with our own stuff, or at least compartmentalize it so it's not going to interfere with any reading. And then that way, when we're working, things don't get the better of us. You know, if you lost a loved one in a traumatic circumstance, and then someone from the spirit world comes forward and they passed in the same circumstance, if you'd not addressed that, some of that could have come up within you, and it could collapse the reading and make the reading difficult. So yeah, that can often speak of that type of issue. I'm not saying that's what's happening, but maybe have a think about that and see if there's anything that you can see within that may make sense. But it's not an easy one, but definitely do ask your guides for help, and do mentally imagine moving outside of that energy. That's what I'd recommend. Palestine. What made mediums like Gordon Higgins so absolutely phenomenal at this? He was also strong at objective clairvoyance, which I understand takes so much more energy from both spirit and the medium. Well, now a lot of the great mediums, they didn't always see as objectively as you'd imagine. So people, when they say, oh, I can see them standing with you, it doesn't mean they're actually seeing them objectively standing with you. It means within their mind's eye, and then they look at it, that person, that's where they are. It's like, but they're seeing it clairvoyantly. That's the key thing to bear in mind. So what made people like Gordon Higgins so amazing? Well, part of it is natural ability. Absolutely. It has to, you know, for people who are at the absolute cream of the crop, there's got to be some potential within them of natural ability, some degree of gift. Some people argue, is mediumship a gift? Is it an ability? Well, it's both. It's an ability that everybody has, but when you have it to a strong degree, we argue you're gifted. So people like Gordon, Helen Hughes, Estelle Roberts, they were gifted in that they had this potential within them that could take them so much further than us mere mortals. If you do want to know what the qualities that they had were, then do check out my Great Mediums course. Because when I did the Great Mediums course, I didn't intend to do the final class on what can we learn from them. But basically what happened was I did the stories of all these great mediums, and I myself saw all these qualities and aspects within them that actually, if you like, they are signposts and guides, how we ourselves can also unfold the greatness from within. Now, we may not achieve their lofty heights. I get that. Again, we are mere mortals, but we can become great in the potentials that we have within us. And they were all had this absolute commitment to it. It was all about service. It was all for the right reasons. It was never about the money. It was a spiritual process. They were spiritual qualities that they were using. You know, it didn't matter if they'd ever got paid for it. It didn't matter. It was sacrifice. They sacrificed a huge amount of their lives to do this work. And we're starting to see some of the aspects that go into making them great. Now, so we have to ask ourselves, what are we willing to sacrifice? We have to ask ourselves, are we willing to be of service? Are we willing to do it for the right reasons? Yeah, all of them generally had a hard time, had a hard life, had difficulties with it. Yeah, Gordon was attacked many, many times. Gordon, you know, there's a lot of when you get that good, there's a lot of jealousy in the movement as well. So you have to be able to learn to move beyond that. But of course, you're a sensitive. We enhance our sensitivity. So we've got the sensitivity butterfly, and then people attack you, and you need the skin of a rhinoceros to deal with it. So it's not easy. So if that's of interest, there is a couple of videos on the channel that are short extracts from that class. One of them is what can we learn from the great mediums? Check out that video on my channel. And if that appeals to you, then I do highly recommend the Great Mediums course, because when you listen to their stories, you'll see that insight into what made them do it. You know, someone like Harry Edwards, he healed millions of people in his life. His life's work was his healing. From the moment he developed it to the moment he passed, He literally finished writing letters and signing letters to people and then passed. Gordon Higginson returned home from serving Blackpool Spiritualist Church, sat in the chair with a cup of tea and passed. They worked till the very end. They did service till the absolute very end. There was no retirement in it for them, and they wouldn't have retired anyway, because their passion, their love was this work for spirit. Absolutely. So we can learn an awful lot from the great mediums of the past. And that's one of the reasons that was the first course I ever did, because I was so moved by their stories. And I wanted to tell their stories, and I wanted to show the qualities that they had. And then ultimately the class that fell out of it was, well, what can we learn? What are the qualities, the common qualities and the common aspects that we can see within all of them that made them great? And that's, of course, the signposts for us to become great too. So do check out What Can We Learn from the Great Mediums on my channel. If that appeals, then yeah, consider that one. I highly recommend that one. Okay. Nothing to see here. Thank you, Barn. That's my dad's name too. I'm able to connect to others in ways I've never been able to with him. It used to make me doubt my gift. Thanks for explaining. You're very welcome. Jay, I've done a few practice circles and I've practiced sitting in the spirit. Will I still get a lot from the fundamentals course? I would think so, absolutely. What I found was, in my own development, was that when I went to circles, classes, very few people taught me the foundations in terms of how mediumship works, in terms of the mechanics. Very few people told me how I should connect to spirit. Very few people told me the mechanics of mediumship and explained it in a simple, easy to understand way. So one of my goals was to try and create this. I'm the kind of person who always asks why. I'm the one who always says, when someone says connect the spirit, I say, how do we do it? And they say, just do it. And I call that the Nike approach. They just do it strapline. But no, there's got to be more than that. So then I ask lots of people, what do you all do? And everyone tells me something different. And then I look at it all through my analytical mind, my scientific mind, and see all the commonality and say, there you go. They're all doing something that moves them closer to the spirit world. So then we can teach different methodologies, and then we try to say to you, you've got to try them all and see which is the one that works best for you. You'll feel it when it works good. You'll feel connected. Absolutely. So yeah, I think you'd get something from it. I do. I think most people would. I often say, if you're interested in my videos, then classes 1 to 12 kind of work. If you want to do it as cheap as possible, classes 1 to 12 kind of give you the basis. And, connecting to spirit, classes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they cover a lot of the same content as the fundamentals of mediumship. So if you want to do it through those, you can. If you're doing the study program, it's based upon those classes. So don't buy the fundamentals of mediumship if you're buying modules of the study program. Don't buy fundamentals of mediumship if you've bought mediumship classes 3, 4, 5, 6, because the information is the same, just in a different package. But this is the later stuff I developed, was these courses, and they kind of build on each other. So the fundamentals filled the gap between the meditations class and the getting better evidence. It was the interim step. But as I say, that is duplicating some of the other stuff. Most of the other stuff there goes much deeper than any of my other teachings. So areas like spiritual self-development, this is where you'll get the greatest within the course. Areas like confidence again, understanding guides and helpers, private readings, platform, understanding how we receive evidence, how to get better evidence. The courses give you the depth, probably more than anything else. Okay. Do you suggest guided meditations while sitting in the power, or silently build it ourselves? What I suggest is check out the meditation that I offer on my channel for free. A lot of people sit and use that routinely. And then when you know the practice and you know the visualization process, you can just do it yourself over time. But to begin with, you kind of have to be talked through some kind of process. So you have to be guided through it. I personally don't use music, never have, never will. Main reason being is that if you do it without music, then you can do it anywhere. But if you do it with music, you become conditioned to needing the music, and sometimes you get distracted by the music. Sometimes you move into the music. When I'm working with spirit in a sitting or in a demonstration, there's no music going on, and I'm making that blend. So by having no music and sitting in the power, we're training ourselves for that exact scenario, to be in that connection. So that's why I recommend that we don't do it to music. There's a lot of other people who offer sitting in the power meditations. The quality varies. I'd say that some of them are not what I'd call sitting in the power. For me, sitting in the power is an attunement meditation where we attune through our own soul, through our own energy, through our own spirit, to attune to the spirit world. We merge and take our spirit self to the spirit world. I would say the soul is the gateway to spirit. So you've got to connect to your own soul, then the spirit world, create that blend, learn to hold that blend. When you drop it, learn to rebuild it, learn to hold that blend. And when we spend time in the presence of spirit, what the potentials within us will begin to unfold. But we have to stay connected. We have to stay blended. If we just let our mind go somewhere nice, relax, you've lost the connection, you've lost the blend. It takes a lot of work and a lot of effort to hold that blend. And in the early days, a lot of people don't do it as well as they should, because it's not a beginner's meditation. And if you want to do a nice beginner's meditation, we go on the guided visualizations where we go on a lovely mountain path and we smell the flowers and we hear the birds and we let the sun heat our skin. That's guided visualization type meditation, which is perfect for beginners to get them used to following some form of guided visualization. But sitting in the power, I call that more of a slightly more intermediate meditation, because some people who are used to that kind of meditation find it boring. But when you think about all the ancient traditions where people develop that spirituality from within, they're all variations upon sitting in the power. When people are learning to touch the essence and presence of God, they're all variations on sitting in the power. It's all about that attunement, that blend, moving into that power. So that's what we're seeking to do. But there are different ways of getting there, of course. Absolutely. Okay, next, Chris. Throughout my life, I've had so many psychic experiences, but I'm still skeptic. And sometimes I feel it's just my imagination. Does this happen to you? I'm an arch skeptic. I am the most skeptical person. I could call myself the skeptical medium. I won't, but I could. And if you're going to tell me something's real, you're going to have to prove it to me. If someone's telling me that they're a medium, they're going to have to give me some evidence that demonstrates that they're not just reading my mind. So, yes, I get it. But so I'm very skeptical as well. But ultimately, our own experiences move us beyond that. That's the thing. So I've had those experiences, absolutely. So what you have to do is you've got to set some of that skeptical nature aside and just start developing, start working with it, start letting it unfold. And then you'll find, you'll get the evidence that convinces you that you don't need to be skeptical anymore. That's what I'd recommend. Jay, you should listen to the telepathy tapes. It's about telepathic communication with non-speaking autistic kids. So it sounds interesting. I shall check that out. Thank you for answering my questions. You're very welcome. Melinda, does connecting with pet spirit feel the same as with human spirit? No, it doesn't. In my experience, it's got a different energy. So connecting with an adult has a different energy from connecting with a child or a young child or a baby. Some people say, oh, you can't work with the baby. Just like I said earlier on, some people say you can't work with pets. But you can, because in the spirit world, they are not that baby anymore. In the spirit world, they are a soul. They are able to communicate as that soul. Now, the baby's mind may not have a good memory of recollecting a great deal of what took place, but the soul's mind in the spirit world knows a great deal about the sitter, knows a great deal about a lot of things. So yes, a baby can communicate from the spirit world, for sure. Just as an animal can, but they have different energies. And sometimes when we have people who may have had some degree of mental development issues, they have a completely different energy as well when they communicate in the spirit world. And sometimes you just can't feel the age, but you just feel so much love, so much love. I've had several Down syndrome communicators from spirit, and always the love is just so beautiful, so profound. It's like they are so different from other communications. And similarly with an animal, it's a different energy. It doesn't feel quite the same, but yeah. So they're all, but how you experience each one will be unique to you. So I know they're very different for me. So, but again, each person will sense it differently, feel it differently. Stacy, 1000% there is no retirement from service to spirit. Absolutely. And for many of us doing this work, it's a passion, and you do it, and once you've begun doing it, it's hard to stop. I can't ever see retirement. I don't think retirement's possible. What happens for some mediums is it's the body packing in that stops them from being able to physically do the work, or it's circumstances get in the way. But most of the great mediums work till the very end, because that was what they wanted to do. It's service to spirit. Why would you not want to do it? Absolutely. Thank you. I've been working through that guided sit in the power, and it's wonderful. Glad you like it. Stephanie, if we have 3 kids that need headphones for concentrating quiet time, is it okay to use music for sitting in the power? Laugh out loud. There's no quiet time in our house, or any other suggestions. You can always try those noise cancelling headphones, maybe. But here's something for you as well. Learn to let the noise and the surroundings go if you can. Learn not to engage with it. Let it, you're aware of it, but you don't need to engage with it, because whenever we work, it's never purely silent, to be frank. We'll be doing a sitting, and there'll be police cars herring up and down the road, sirens blaring. There'll be someone playing their music somewhere, annoying us. There'll be, quite often, if we're doing it in a spiritualist church, there might be 6 mediums in the room all working at the same time, and a whole bunch of people sitting in the room chatting as well, and it's quite a loud volume to work. In the UK, we do something called psychic suppers, where you work in a room whereby there may be, 70 or 80 people in the room, and they're all chatting, and the medium has to try and work above the volume, and it's loud. I've done a demonstration in a spiritualist church where the burglar alarm went off and couldn't be stopped, and I had to shout above the burglar alarm to be heard, which is hilarious. So I had to work with this blaring noise going off really loud. And the most amusing thing was the first communicator who came through was deaf, and I just found that so funny, so amusing. The first communicator was like, it doesn't bother me, I'm deaf. And it was just, wow. The intelligence of spirit never ceases to amaze me, and their humour in those circumstances as well. So if we can learn to deal with noise as well when we're blending with spirit, that's good. If you like, that's the next step. Learn to do it first, and then learn to work through the noise. So maybe noise cancelling headphones would be my first port of call. If there's any way you can take yourself off to and do it. But again, if you need to be looking after your 3 kids and keeping a close eye on them, depending upon their age, then maybe try and do it when they're in bed if possible. But if you're not too tired. I'd hate you to go somewhere with noise cancelling headphones when utter chaos is happening and problems are developing that you should be keeping an eye on. So obviously you'll understand what is important, but you see what I'm saying? I'm not trying to tell anyone to remove themselves from any of their obligations of responsibility. Okay. I've been having difficulty getting into trance, like I had experienced once or twice before. Any tips for blending deeper and getting out of my head more effectively? So again, learning to do it takes time. To do trance, it's good to have sitters to give energy to the process, in-person sitters. It's easier to develop trance, I feel, in person than it is online. But it just takes a long time to develop. It takes a long time. And for a lot of people, they don't develop it because they find it boring, because nothing's happening. So we kind of have to learn to have incredible patience developing trance, for sure. Again, sometimes what you get is you get those spiritual sweeties where they show you the potentials. Like, for example, the first time I ever went to a trance circle, I joined a trance circle, but it was the first circle I ever joined before any other circle. And I was just invited along to it. And after a number of times there, I actually started talking in trance. And I didn't mean for it to happen. It just happened spontaneously. And some of the other people there were like, he's just starting, what's happening? This is not right. And it created a bit of jealousy within the circle as well with some of the more experienced people. But again, I'd say it was a spiritual sweetie to show me there was a potential there. I then left that circle, and I didn't start developing trance for probably 7 years later. but I knew there was a potential because it happened spontaneously. So sometimes spirit will give us these spiritual sweeties, these show us these potentials, and we know it's there, but it takes a lot of effort. But I knew I had to learn the basics of mediumship first, evidential, before I was going to sit for trance, before I was going to move in that direction. So yes, but it's not an easy thing to do. Absolutely. I do have a video. One of my videos, special topic number 1, is all about trance mediumship. That gives loads of hints and tips there. Those videos, they're £15 currently on offer, 10% off on all my products. If that's of interest, do check it out. There's also one on trance healing. The trance healing one does build upon spiritual healing, so don't buy trance healing without spiritual healing if that interests you, because the first one is like a requirement for the second one. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, next question. Find the gold lesson then. Thank you, Martin. The kids become the teachers. Absolutely, absolutely. If you have time, can you speak on the difference between prayer and intention setting? And can the intention change within the setting? So for me, when we do a prayer, we are setting an intention. That's all it is. You know, whenever I work, we need to set a clear intention with spirit. So that can be through a prayer, or it can just be through us blending with spirit and sending our thoughts to spirit. I'm going to be doing a reading for somebody. Can I help give them what they need? I ask that their loved ones will come and blend with me. And I ask that we can create a meaningful reunion, bring through meaningful evidence, a meaningful message. Is that a prayer, or is that just communication, setting the intent? If I started with great spirit and ended with amen, it'd be a prayer. But if I just was a conversation with spirit, it's setting the intent. The difference between them is trivial, but prayers are often what we do in a public environment in beginning of a service or an end of a service, which sets the intent for the service, but where we're praying on behalf of everybody present in the room as well. So it involves everybody. It's power building as well. Prayer can be very power building. If you want to know more about prayers, I have a video on that one. Mediumship Class 12, Prayers, Philosophy and the Address. That goes into how to basically develop prayers and the philosophy and the address. And we start off by creating something that is a framework, and we may even have fixed words within it. But then we learn to open to the inspiration from spirit. We learn to allow spirit to guide it. So that every prayer ultimately should be different. Every prayer ultimately should tie in with the energy of the room, the energy of the people. So that's how we move prayers on. We open to the inspiration of spirit, and we open to the energy of the room and the needs of the room. That's what we're looking for. Yes, that's exactly. I was shown the potential 2 years ago and unsuccessfully hit that level of trance. Yeah, I understand that. I had it myself. I probably, before I started developing trance properly, I went on a couple of courses that had trance involvement as well, you know, and not a lot happened. But maybe once or twice I spoke, but not particularly well. But it wasn't until I set the intent that I want to develop trance and I'm taking this seriously that it then started to build and move and go. Sometimes we have to make that total commitment to it as well. But again, it's where we are on our own journey of development. Is it the right time for you right now for it to develop? Or are there other things that need to be done first? For me, I want to develop healing and I wanted to develop evidential mediumship. And those were the two I developed in parallel first. And there are some people who tell you you can't develop them both at the same time. I was told by a medium, oh, you're trying to do healing and you're trying to do mediumship, you've got to choose one or the other. And the answer is no, you don't. You just got to understand the mechanics of how they both work and do each one the right way. Because you can't do healing by applying the knowledge and mechanics of mediumship. You can't do mediumship by using the same energy used for healing. It's not going to work. They are totally opposite ends of the spectrum. You need to understand the mechanics, and when you know the mechanics, you can do them all. And then you can do trance, you can do healing, you can do mediumship, you can do inspiration, you can do all of it when we know the different mechanics and we know how it all works. Hopefully that makes sense. So yeah, I love the spiritual sweeties too. Hope you do too. Do I have any live online classes coming up soon? At the moment, it's just the mentorship that I'm going to be launching coming up, but I will be putting a few of the classes on later in the year. So if that interests you, do subscribe to my newsletter. And I'm also probably going to be doing a couple of classes, but there won't be a hugely practical classes, it'll be more theoretical. I want to do something as well at some stage on mediumship and health, because I get asked so many questions about mediumship and health. I'd like to try and pull something together on that. So that's going to be like a short course, couple of sessions that I'm planning as well. So if that sounds of interest, hopefully, yeah, won't be too expensive, but yeah, I think there's a real need for it. People to understand, you know, we've had a question asked here about, you know, connect with those who have Alzheimer's and then it stops me working and the energy stays with me. How do we free ourselves of that energy? How do we transform and move beyond it? How do we give ourselves tools so that doesn't happen in the future? You can use visualizations to stop that happening to a degree. And that's the kind of stuff I want to work with the mediumship and health and taking on energy, all that sort of stuff. So I think that's probably a good place to end it. So thank you everybody for coming. I do hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, if you're watching this on the replay, you can leave me a message if you've enjoyed it. Do like the video, do subscribe to the channel. And remember, check out my sale on my website, 10% off all my products. If there's anything that interests you, do check it out. So I'm going to finish it there. So thanks everyone for coming, and I hope to see you all again in the next one. Bye for now.